Alright, what's up y'all, it's LakerFan here. As you can see by the title of today's video, we're here to give an updated version on the best value for every attribute rating in NBA 2K25. So, we did this before the game even officially dropped when I had early access community day footage, and I was just going to go over what I believe to be every one that was the best value between just badge budgeting and stuff like that. But now we have the addition of having played the game for a month, as well as understanding some things deeper than just badge thresholds and just, you know, what is needed in terms of the gameplay value. So, this is the best value for every attribute rating. I hope y'all enjoy. If you do, feel free to drop a like, sub if you're new, turn on noties, all good stuff, and like always, try this one to 2,000 likes. So let's start from top to bottom. We're gonna go over this close shot all the way down to the vertical, and obviously in order as well. So to start us off with, on the close shot, I have 73 being the first threshold, which is, as you can see, the paint prodigy. And yes, I know, I started this off talking about it was going to be more than just badge thresholds, but in some cases, it may just be certain thresholds that, yeah, 70-ish is a good spot for just hitting open close shots, you know? That's what I would like to think is one that isn't really hitting you with those classic missing wide open layups and stuff like that, or in this case, right underneath the basket, and it obviously deals with paint prodigy as well. Now, I obviously am going to correlate some of these with the badge thresholds as well, and in which case, as you can see, 84 happens to be where the next paint prodigy tier is. And this is where it's a little bit more defined area of like actually being a post scorer, if you will, where anything 84 and above, in my opinion, is definitely in the threshold of the best value as far as being a post scorer. Now, I should clarify, this is much more along the lines of actually just being good at making standing layups. I'm not talking about hitting hook shots or anything like that. You can see hook specialist is obviously correlated with post control as well. If you wanted to see the threshold of that, we can go ahead and crank up the post control. And you will see in that case, obviously you'd want to go higher than 84 close shot for things like gold hook specialist or Hall of Fame for that matter. And I'm not gonna lie, hooks are a little bit more of a nerfed playstyle in this year, if you ask me, in my opinion as well. So I'm not really here to vouch for it too heavy. So 84 is right where we'd settle in as far as like the upper echelon, higher threshold, if you will. But again, 73, pretty much where you want to keep it as far as if you don't really want to invest like crazy, but it's still a good hit rate essentially. So moving along to the driving layup, this is going to be a very easy one, 70 and 80. Now, I know you might be thinking that I'm going back on my word of talking about there's things deeper than just the badge tiering, but with the driving layup, driving dunk, standing dunk, things like that, even in some cases like shooting, ball handling, speed of ball, a lot of these deal with animations obviously as well. And with 70, not only do you get physical finisher, but also access to a decent bit of like mediocre layup packages like Zion Williamson, etc., etc. What's really more valuable though in this case is going to be 80. So as long as you have the strength high enough, in which case you need 67 to be able to get physical finisher on silver, you will get that. And then on top of that too, along with it comes a couple of badges, like at 75 you get layup mixmaster, float game at 78, and then at 80 you get the physical finisher as well, as long as the strength was, as we mentioned, up to the 67. So with 80, you get like LaMelo Ball package, Trae Young if you're a small guard. You get Giannis, Jokic, Sabonis, all that stuff if you're a big. There's a lot of layup packages that are very much so correlated with 80. And in a lot of cases, whether you're a guard, a wing, or a big, 80 is really the sweet spot as far as a lot of the good animation packages. And you happen to get physical finisher with it. It's like the most obvious, you know, good budget spot to be, or value, if you will. And that's what the video is obviously about. Now, obviously, moving along to things like driving dunk, talking about value is going to be a big deal because we talk about dunk packages. Now, if you really want to know the value, 40 gives you some packages. 45, once again, some. 50, some as well. What I'd really recommend as a baseline if you want to be decent at dunking is 65. You get athletic hangs off one. It's probably the best package for like the budget ratings, if you ask me. It's like the closest things to quick drops or like the Devin Booker package, and it's like decent, you know, for 65. But here's the thing, I know I've given you some pretty solid thresholds so far of like 2 for the layup, 2 for the close shot as well, but for the driving dunk, we're talking about a lot of different rating thresholds. So again, 65 for athletic hangs off one, 70 if you want the park dunks. And yes, I know it sounds troll, but it really is crazy that you can get so many dunk packages for park dunks at 70. It's literally every single one of them. You got like the flashy hangs off one is probably the best animation possible in terms of if you wanted to go into a rating threshold like this, and it will work for park. It'll work for things like proving grounds and stuff like that. I don't believe it works in ranked pro-am or private pro-am matchups and stuff like that, but for the most part, I'm pretty sure it works in all proving grounds modes. I don't believe that it works in rec. I'm not exactly sure on that one, but either way, park, obviously, like, you know, the event center, stuff like that, yada yada, you get the deal. Theater, it's going to be working for those, and this is a lot of plethora of different dunk packages that are actually really good for you. So 70 in that regard, but if you would like to know my real opinion, I would go along the lines of 80. Now, we can obviously crank the vertical up a little bit and show you what you would be able to get with those, you know, dunk ratings and stuff like that. As you can see, at 73 dunk, you get bronze posterizer. It's tough to say, man, because there's so many different areas of this, like 65 to, let's say, 89 driving dunk that are really good value points. So you just have to determine which one's best for you. So, like I said, we're not given a very concrete rating as far as the dunk, but that's because there's so many things like animations that are correlated with them. So again, 65 for the athletic hangs, 70 for the park dunks. If you're not interested in that so much, it's okay, but either way, 73 is probably something you could crank it up to. And then from that point, I would like to accelerate all the way to 80, where this is just about getting great dunk packages. So, at 80, you get Devin Booker dunk, and that is literally Quick Drops 2.0. It's actually probably even better for that matter, and it's super good, super cheap value, and all you need is the 80 dunk, and I believe a 60 vertical to go with it. So absolutely affordable, super easy in that regard. You could even talk about how like 84 is the contact alley-oop packages, but realistically, if you wanted to go past 80, I would recommend at least 87 to get the pro contacts off too. Realistically though, I'm vouching for 89 driving dunk for pro contacts off 1, and along the way with it, if you have 80 vertical, which we'll talk about how I believe this is a good budget as far as the spot you want to be, then 80 vertical is going to be good for you as well. So you get the aerial wizard, and I'd like to think that combined with the fact you need 78 anyway to get pro contacts off 1, just in general, 89 is a good spot to go for. I wouldn't really recommend 87 because you're just a touch away from like getting a little bit of a buff in terms of your driving dunk ability, but it is what it is. So again, just to address that one last time, make it really easy for you and quick, 65, 70, 80, and then I would say more along the lines like 87, 89. So those are your kind of thresholds, if you will. Now, along those same lines, you can see if we go down on the driving dunk at all, or down on the standing dunk, it'll force a driving dunk down. So what's kind of funny is around these areas of like 40 and 45 standing dunk is where you get the packages, and it's actually quite surprisingly good, and it has been for years for that matter, where 40 standing dunk, 45 standing dunk performs well for that matter. If on the smaller guard builds, it's extremely cheap as well. It's not going to be that cheap on a 6'7 like this, but if you were on like, let's say a 6'2, 6'3, 6'4, something like that, the standing dunk obviously usually caps out at about 50 or 60 on builds like that, and it's super cheap all the way up to it. So I'd recommend on a smaller guard build to max the standing dunk out just because of the cost efficiency of it. On wing builds like this, I would really say 40 and 45 is a pretty good threshold if you want to just be a somewhat reliable standing dunker. Nothing more, you know? I've played on inside builds that have 50 standing dunk, and it performs plenty fine, and I would still vouch for 45, absolutely. So, anyway, besides that, obviously, we have thresholds that are more worth going for if you're trying to be an elite standing dunker, and in which case, 81, probably your sweet spot. You know, you get the silver rise up, obviously some standing contact dunk packages. You get things like, you know, definitely decent standing dunk packages just as a regular dunk package, not just the pro contacts. But then after 81, obviously 90. You know, we've talked about this in the previous one. It was a very like obvious spot to be just because it correlates with animations and badges. I mean, it's always going to be a good spot as far as value if that's the case, you know. 81 and 80 giving you the pro contacts, and then 90 on the dot giving you elite contacts. It's like, why would you ever not think that's a good threshold as far as value? So anyway, besides that, ironically, the post control is already set at 77, and that is also correlated with the post-up poet. It's where our cheapest value is, in my opinion, as far as the post control. I don't believe you want to really believe in the drop steps or depend on them, if you will, any lower than this. I think this year, having things like unpluckable actually matter for sure. You know, it's correlated with you losing the ball on the post-ups and stuff like that. You can see my ball handle is a little bit too low, so let's go ahead and take that down just to show you that you can get the unpluckable through 75 post control, and then at 77 you get the post-up poet on silver. Also correlated with that is post powerhouse, which is going to be helping you with the drop steps and the just backing down of defenders in the first place. And again, all this stuff coincides with 75 post control or 77, and you might as well just tick it up a little bit, obviously, if you're already at 75. So 77 for the post up poet. It's silver badges pretty much across the board, and then obviously bronze unpluckable as well. So good value as far as a cheap post score sort of dynamic if you want to add it to your build but not really depend on it so much. But obviously with most people who do post scoring, you do want to depend on it more likely than not, and here's the case. You go all the way from 77 to 86 and you won't gain a single badge, or more so 85, if you will. But when you hit 86, you get unpluckable on silver, and then at 87, you get post-up poet on gold. So this is a good spot as well if you want to be more of an elite post scorer, and I can vouch for this myself. I have that 610 that you guys saw in the video yesterday, if you want to check that out, where I'm using a 610 post scorer as like a post slash kind of, and it has 87 post control. It actually has a little bit more strength than this right here as well. So as you can see, with 87 post control, and if I had 86 strength, which on that build I do, you're able to get the post powerhouse on gold as well with this. So let me just run this one back real quick, because it doesn't really even showcase as well if they didn't have the strength up. 85 gold powerhouse, 86 unpluckable, 87 gold post up poet. It's like a perfect spot to be if you want to be a decent investment of a post scorer, but not something completely dependent on only doing it, if you will. So just to clarify, 87, 77. Good spots to hit as far as the value. You can see the threshold of the badges pretty much all getting +1 from that point. 1 up on the unpluckable, 1 up on the powerhouse, 1 up on the post-up poet. Easy. Also, in case you guys didn't know, I'm pairing with NBA 2K Labs again this year. So you can use my code Laker at checkout for 20% off of any subscription link that you decide to go for. Obviously, what you're going to find on here is going to be really useful information that we're showing all across the whole screen right now, but mainly to be talked about is obviously the jump shot data. So the guys are cool enough to let me show you the information from the 2K24 premium jumper data. If you want the access to the 25 year, you'd obviously have to subscribe to their premium and, you know, using my code as well if you would like. But as you can see, like, we have them sorted by speed right here. You can sort by every one of these different individual categories right here between the fastest millisecond jump shots. You can sort that by your individual height between the guards, wings, and bigs. You can sort by speed, green window, the early, middle, and late end of the green window as well, and then the total accumulation of all of that. And I mean, that's how I came to the conclusion that Terrence Mann was a really good base last year, combining all that information. Crazy stuff. So again, to be able to find something like this in 25, you would be able to just sign up for the premium. So what you're going to do when you're ready to sign up, you would just come over here and click register with whatever length of subscription you'd like to go for. After you hit register, it'll ask you to put in a promo code. You just put in Laker when you hit apply coupon right here, and boom, you're looking good. With code Laker, you're going to get 20% off your subscription. If you guys would like to help me out, I get a percentage based off your initial purchase only. So a recurring bill, like if you get a 1 month subscription, I only get the 1 month that you sign up for initially, and then anything past that I don't. So if you do plan to go for like a 3 or a 6 or even a year-long subscription, feel free to just, you know, do that if you want to support me. But I understand not everybody wants to go for that, so it's all good if you don't. Anyway, appreciate you guys for watching. Let's get back to the video. So moving along to the mid-range and three-pointer, this is a case where in both of the ratings, it's 78 for the silver set shot specialist. What an alliteration that is. I remember trying to get back to that on day 1 of the game being out too, talking about this silver set shot specialist quadruple S's. But anyway, point being is that 78 is a good spot to be at. But let's go ahead and, like, let's say make this a mini wingspan 6'7" that I actually showcased in a previous video where it had like 89 three-pointer, right? Here's the thing that you want to be a little bit on alert for. So we talked about 78 being the nice threshold for that, as well as just in general, 89 is a good spot as well when it comes to three-point, or maybe mid-range, but more so 3 because it's correlated with limitless range. But as you can see, you know, set shot specialist also tied into it. Point I want to make though is you want to be mindful of things like this when you make the build. So let's just go ahead and upgrade like the speed, for instance. We could put it at like 80. It doesn't have to be super high. I just want to make this point real quick. So if you hit right bumper and go over to your takeovers, you're going to see that when you upgrade that mid-range rating, you might be looking at things like Midi Magician right here, right? Where that is up, or Lost Art for that matter, or Make It Rain. All these takeovers and stuff like that, a lot of them are associated with 80 mid-range. And Make It Rain, most specifically, is a really good takeover that a lot of you guys might miss out on if you weren't aware of the whole good threshold to hit, right? Because you might be a point guard who's most, you know, concerned with three-pointer and driving dunk, and that's it. You want to be kind of just more of like a shoot the ball when I'm open from the 3 and dunk when I'm not. And that's definitely the type of ideology I go into as a guard. But because a lot of you guys are probably more concerned with the things like speed as well as one of your tertiary ratings that are going up on your takeover, this is a really good one to have. And if you miss out on it just because you don't have the mid-range, that would suck, you know? So having 80 midi in mind as a good value point to hit is also very important. Again, for the three-point, I would vouch for like 89. We can go ahead and switch over to like a more small guard build. Don't even mind that it's a small forward. We're just going to this to be able to use this as an example for the ratings that it gives you. But as a matter of fact, let's actually change the position so we can go to 6'3" and actually show you how this works. So with like mini marksman, as you can see, that's 94. But I'm not even too concerned about that because not a lot of you guys out there are maybe making builds like that. That's just maybe 30% of you or something like that are, you know, 6'3" and below. But what's really worth for the value if you're going extremely high in the three-pointer is 95 and 96. So this is going to be able to get you if you had a little bit more agility. This is why I want to do this in this portion of the video rather than like to show it on just a screen that I was showing the numbers like the last one where I was on my own little app showing it, because this I can actually be more interactive with and show. So like 95 3-pointer, Hall of Fame Deadeye, Hall of Fame Set Shot Specialist. 96, Limitless and Shifty Shooter. It has nothing to do with Mini Marksman because that's at 97, and that's why we're vouching more for like the 95, 96 in my opinion, because not all builds associate with that, but that's a good spot to be, you know, like vouching for 95, 96, really good spot. Now, we talked about this in the previous video of how, unbelievably, you could argue that 99 3-pointer is the best value. I mean, you sit here and look at if you had 98, it gets you the Legend Set Shot Specialist, but more than that, 99 gets you all 5 shooting badges that correlate with 3-pointer on Legend. It's a tough thing to decide on because this is a really good spot to be. So as we mentioned before, if you were to, let's say, use maybe even +3 on your cap breakers. Let's say you wanted to make your build usable out the gate at 96. To use +3 cap breakers on this, as it's extremely expensive on the build, to get all 5 shooting badges Legend is extreme value for sure. While also, you could argue, just making it 94 and going up +5 to 99 would be good, but that's besides the point. We're not really here to talk about that. I just wanted to tell you about how 95, 96, good spot to be. 99, obviously a lot of Legend badges, and you can say the same for a lot of ratings, but what's more important than 3-pointer? It's tough to say. So anyway, besides that, wanted to talk about free throw for just a tad bit. I have used plenty of different ratings between 50 to actually, for that matter, even like 34 up to 50 on a lot of builds, up to 60 on a few, and like 61, 62. And I gotta say, the 60 to 62, stuff like that, you can get a very good percentage make, if you will, where you can shoot whites and it'll be your slightlies are like around 60, percent to go in. It seems to correlate pretty identically with the rating that you have, as far as if you like time it really good, but it's white. But what I really got to say is it's a very cheap attribute rating if you're not a pure inside, right? Because this is why I want to talk about this to all you guys who are watching. If you've seen me, on a lot of different builds, and granted, it seems to function a little bit different for like different heights. So let's just go up to 6'8". As you can see, I could go up to a 50 free throw and it won't even touch the 3-pointer, whereas on a 6'3" it did. But what I mostly value is to not touch the mid-range and 3-point ratings if I'm on a pure inside. Obviously, it's a little bit tough when you start, upgrading 2 sets of ratings that you have nothing to do with, So when you're at like 60 plus free throw at a 6'8", it's a little bit tough to vouch for, So that's why I don't really end up at that spot for the most part. Most of the builds, it's correlated with whatever close shot I have, because sometimes when you're up like, that high, then it's also forcing up your mid-range. So then it's like, okay, if my midi was forced up to 35, I might as well go to 60 free throw, because then if I go any higher, now it's pulling up the mid-range as well. So that's the only specific time that I'll talk about low rating free throws is on pure inside builds that you don't want to force up useless ratings, because what's the difference between 25 3-pointer and 30? That's a tough thing to waste some attribute points on. But if you are a shooting build that has a high 3-pointer, it's like at that point, crank that free throw out, bro. Like, do whatever you got to do to feel comfortable hitting the shots. I mean, this is the most cheap rating in the game for that matter. You may as well spend points on it. Easy. But anyway, that's probably a little bit too much to talk about free throw. It is what it is. So let's move along to pass accuracy. 75 is going to be a good threshold. Obviously, break starter for the power forwards of the world out there who want to be able to throw the breaks but not like depend on it too much. It's also good for a lot of different pass styles, like being able to get the Aaron Fox and stuff like that as well. Or my bad, more so John Morant, I believe, is the one that's actually good for like the 75 pass act. Besides that, I would like to think 89 is probably what you want to shoot for, whether you're trying to throw good breaks as a power forward or a center. If you want to be a really accurate point guard, having the versatile visionary plus the break starter as a big in that regard, and then 85 for like the bailout. Having the Tyrese Halliburton pass style as well. Just 89 in general is a good benchmark to be for a point guard, if you ask me. Everything combined. So that was a pretty simple explanation. I'd like to think it's 75 and 89 thresholds. Easy. So for ball handle, 71 is what we're going to go for as far as the like low to intermediate ball handle requirements, if you will. So like you get decent packages at 70. You get all the pro animations and stuff like that. Pro behind the back. It's good for like the standstill behind the backs as well as downhill. And along with that, you get the bronze unpluckable. And then at 71, you get bronze sandal for days. Now, there are some animations correlated with like, let's say 75 as well. So you could consider keep on pushing it up, but you can keep pushing that point until you get to the point of like 80 and 81, where it's actually correlated with badges again. You get things like Zach LaVine snatchback at the 80 ball handle, Devin Booker aggressive breakdown combo. They're all some of the best animations of the game, actually, for that matter. And 80 is a good spot to be, but then it's like crank it up one more time, you get the silver handles for days. So 81, 71, probably my 2 threshold points if you ask me. Again, 70 unpluckable, handles for days. 80 unpluckable, handles for days. Just another higher level and some better animations you get along with it. So it's a pretty simple, actually, way of explaining it, for that matter. So, with speed with ball, I'm going to recommend a couple thresholds, but I'm not taking 40 seriously. It's more so just if you're a true blue big man out there and you happen to have like 36 speed with ball in your build, just put it to 40. You get normal dribble style. It's a lot better than basic, 100%, and it's worth your time, if you ask me. It's worth a couple investment points of your build. Now, if you are, let's say, around 7 foot to, let's say, 6'8" for that matter, even. Or you could even argue up to even like 6'6". 60 speed with ball is going to give you the Zion dribble style. It's one of the best ones in the game as far as the wings and the bigs and stuff like that, and it's very affordable for that matter. So 60, good threshold point. You could argue maybe 68. I'm not really here to talk about that too much because I don't really think that's something I care to concern myself over talking about. But what is worth talking about is, let's say you're 6'4" and below, right? So even 6'4" is actually the best example of this. I guess technically you could get 91 to get the Hall of Fame lightning launch, but what's really more important to hit is the 85 for the Garland dribble style, as well as 86 for the gold lightning launch. It's just a good spot to be, good threshold. You know, you get to have the best dribble style in the game while also getting the lightning launch 1 point away from it. So it's a good spot to be, for sure. It's one of the best values that I would mention, so that's why we're mentioning in today's video. 60 and 86 are the true value threshold points because it's correlated with the best dribble styles for each height. So, and you don't even worry about that as far as if you were thinking that leaves the bigs out. Like I said, 7 foot and below, you can achieve 60 speed with ball, and you can get the Zion dribble style as well. It just has to be 6'5" and above for the builds. And again, if you want to shoot for the lower threshold, 40 is decent. It gives you normal. So that's perfectly fine. Let's crank the height up a little bit again. Go with like something that has a good display of the defensive ratings. So for interior defense, I really have to vouch for this, and I know I just actually went up on the height, but let's go ahead and show like a 6'4" with like, it doesn't even have to be a big wingspan one. Let's just go ahead and show like, you know, a 6'4" that's got decent threshold of that. So let's say you as a 6'4" wanted 60, you know, defensive rebound, because boom, that's bronze rebound chaser. The reason I say this is because interior defense will force up your defensive rebound. So like if it were lower, you're going to get to a certain point where it is tethered to it. So it's a difference of 20 points, as you can see. But if you did want a 60 defensive rebound, why I'm vouching for that is that you could go up the interior defense extremely cheap. Look at how it doesn't influence the rating on this build at all. So let's just put it to 60, go from 35 interior D all the way up to the max, and it doesn't touch the overall at all. It's literally just allowing you to play better interior defense. And I cannot speak enough to the fact that interior defense on smaller builds is extremely cheap, and it's well worth doing. Now, if you're talking more along the lines of like the tall builds, like the back ends, the centers, stuff like that, here's where it gets a little bit more expensive. You know, we could be on like a footer or something like that, and it will be expensive. You know, it's not touching up a ton of different ratings yet, but obviously it will, you know, change your defensive rebound, your strength, stuff like that, your perimeter D for that matter even. But wanted to talk about how 82 is the nice threshold to hit if you want to be someone who's decent at playing interior defense, as well as unlocking that post-move lockdown, which can be very important for bigs out there, especially with how good post scoring is in this game. So 82 is, I know it's a little bit high, it's a little bit steep for being considered a value rating, if you will, but it's well worth. If you want to go even lower than that, obviously you could go along the lines of just what's correlated with the paint patroller. So like if you have, let's say, a 74 block, you need a 60 interior defense to be able to get bronze paint patroller. It's like the bare minimum if you ask me to go 60 interior D, but that's kind of a joke if you ask me. When you look at that 6'4" point guard we just made, and you can literally get a 78 interior D for so cheap, it's kind of crazy to think about making a 7-footer with that low of interior defense. And it's important if you ask me in this game. So you could talk about a lot of different thresholds. 74 gives bronze post-move lockdown. 82, like I said, silver, as well as you also need something above 70 to get silver paint patroller. You can see if you have an 84 block and then a 74, you know, a 70 interior defense, it could give you silver paint patroller. So there's a lot of different thresholds. What I'm listing for the video, though, of the best value is 82 and 88. I'm a firm believer of it, and I know strength has to be correlated with it in some cases to get the post-move lockdown, but I've tested these before, and I believe in them big time. Post-lockdown included. I've tested post-lock, and to have this against post scores is a huge deal versus not. So I'm a big believer of 82 and 88. I haven't really played anything higher than that. You know, I've never really had anything higher, and I would like to think anything higher than that is maybe overkill, but hey, I'm not gonna lie, playing against other people that have like a 90 plus interior D, it can be very intimidating as a slasher and a post scorer, or just a finisher in general, a center, anything. So again, I know I'm kind of bouncing around with the heights and stuff like that, but now we're going to the perimeter D. This is a very simple one, in my opinion. So 74 is going to be for a lot of different badges. This goes for a lot of different builds too. You could be a point guard out there with 74 interior D, just trying to be a decent defender while being very offensively invested. You could be a big man out here, or maybe even a 6'9" who's just placing their ratings a little bit odd, if you ask me, because really what I'm talking about for the wings and like lockdowns out there is 85 perimeter D. You have to have the agility correlated with it as well, obviously, to, you know, get the most out of this. But 74 and 85, in my opinion, best thresholds to hit. 74 given a ton of different things. Like if you can see, if you go down even just to 70, you're missing out on so many different badges. But when you go to 71, Challenger. 72, Silver Removable. 73, Pick Dodger. 74, Almo Menace. It's like, that is a huge difference between 70. If someone were to make a mistake on their build and just go 70 per MD on a 6'9 build or something, you're missing out on so many bronze badges right there. And then, again, another threshold of pretty much the exact same thing, correlating with the other threshold right here of 82 for Challenger, 83 for Pick Dodger, 85 for Almo Menace, and also if your strength is at 85 as well, you'll be able to get a movable enforcer at, as you can see, the 84. So that's another you know, threshold point that gets kind of factored in right here to the 85. So that's why we're vouching really hard for 74, 85. You can't speak enough to the fact that this is something you have to correlate with badge points. I mean, it's gotta be, because PrimD itself doesn't feel like a great, super useful attribute rating, if you ask me, but the badges that are correlated with it are extremely good. Like, for instance, to get a movable enforcer and on-ball menace, and even Challenger for that matter, is important to have. I know it's maybe not the right, it's not really easy to make an example of Challenger being important, but when you don't have it, it stands out really bad. Even though when you do have it, it seems like it's a little bit unrewarding, you gotta understand that people who don't have it feel terrible on the contest in this game. So, anyway, moving along to the steal rating. This is very simple. It's going to be correlated with a lot of interceptor thresholds, and just, we like those even numbers as well. So 60 for the bigs out there. People who are like 6'10 plus, even 6'11 plus more so, I should say. 60 steal for the bronze interceptor is a really good spot where you can still get lanes reliably, and it'll get the job done, you know, but nothing crazy. Anything past that, though, I'm not a huge believer in the whole, like, people who think of, like, 73 steal for the silver interceptor. I really don't like that it's just for the interceptor and you're investing that far into it. I like 85. Get to a nice, respectable threshold, gold interceptor and all. I think this is something that a lot of builds can achieve, whether it's a 6'9", 6'8", 6'7", anything like that. It's a really affordable spot to be, and it's a really respectable thing, where this is the threshold that you get to be a really big threat when it comes to passing lanes. Anything past that, though, I'm more of a, you know, 94 fan as well. But again, that's more just being expensive and talking about the interceptor thresholds and stuff like that. So anyway, back to changing the heights again. I know this is a little bit tedious, but it is what it is. Anyway, for the block, it's pretty obvious. You know, we're talking about the thresholds of the block badges, but what I really have listed is 78 because it's associated with the Paint Patroller and the High Flying Denier, as long as the vertical matches with the 74 right here. And then what I also am a big believer in is the 84. This is for the Paint Patroller on silver. And this, combined with the interior D being high, or like whether it's 82 and 84 for the block and interior D combo or anything like that, I'm a big believer and a big fan of this on any build that's like 6'7" and above, to be able to bang out on the interior defense. Simple as that. Nothing really more required from the block. Like I said, this is very associated with High Flying Denier and Paint Patroller. You could argue 88, you know, be able to get up to the pogo stick, as well as you still need an 80 vertical as well to get High Flying Denier on gold, but it's a little bit of a tougher investment, you know. But if you stick to what I was talking about with the whole belief in vertical block and, you know, the driving dunk for the 89 being associated with that Aerial Wizard threshold, it's something that could be worth. But I'm more a believer in the value of the 84 and then the 78 as well. So, you know, we gotta budget a little bit here, not put everything on the list in like the 88s and the 90s and thresholds and stuff like that. Anyway, for the rebounding, I'm gonna be more in the thresholds of like the badges again, but I do want to talk about my experience on the game with like how I feel about them as well. So let's just talk a little bit. I've used builds that have, you know, rebound ratings in the 80 range and stuff like that. We're not going to talk about Rebound Chaser. I just want to talk about builds that I've used that have these certain rebound ratings. So whether it's me having, I could even give you the best example, right? I have builds that have 96 offensive rebound, but I cap break them as well. So what really happened was I had something like a 79 defensive rebound, and then I cap break +5 on the O board. So just because the tether shows that I have 96, but it's associated with 81, it doesn't mean that that necessarily is what I had, because this is what the build truly is. It's a 96 O board with a 79 D board. So I would like to think you want to be in that 79 to 80 range if you want to be respectable on each end of the court. I know a lot of you guys out there will think of this the same way I do, where I just want the side of the court that I want to specialize in to be really high, and the other one, maybe I don't feel as adamant to put it super high. But you want it to be respectable. You do not want to be a complete liability on either end of the court when it comes to rebounding. So I'd like to think in the 80 range and then the 90 range is something you want to be at. However, let's talk about the high end as well. So 85 is going to give you that box out beast and rebound chaser. It's probably the baseline level I would talk about being a really like solid to good rebounder. 80 can get the job done as the silver chaser, but I'm not sure this is the level you're really trying to get if you're trying to be a legitimately good rebounder per se. But I mean, either way, it is associated with pogo stick being on bronze, which I'm not here to vouch for pogo on bronze in the first place, but I mean, it can get the job done. Either way, I would like to vouch more for like the high end stuff. So this is what we're listing as the actual rebound best value. So 85, 92, because as you can see, anything from 85 to 91 gives you absolutely nothing in terms of the value of like, you know, the attributes and stuff. So 92 gives you the rebound chaser on gold. Now, I'm not a big enough fan of box out beast in this year's game, in my opinion, to justify the 94 rebound as a value point. I'm talking about 96. To get the Hall of Fame rebound chaser and be able to max +1 that to legend is a big deal. And also, I mean, along the way to 96 gets you the box out beast on Hall of Fame anyway. So, I mean, I know it's not really something that's value because we're talking about a 96 rebound rating, which is not value, obviously. But on the rebounding, you kind of have to be high end with it to be on the elite side of things. I mean, you're going to be trying to compete with people who have crazy high rebound ratings, and there's a lot of people on the court that do have these ratings as well. So to have like an 80 is a bit tough, a bit difficult, if you will, to, you know, try and get involved in the rebound game. So to actually be able to get involved, I think you need to be more along the lines of like 92, 96, if you ask me. But I've got the job done, technically speaking, on builds that had, like, let's say, I'm gonna use this as my example. I have builds that have a 92 defensive rebound with an 85 O board on my 6'8", and it's a plenty good offensive rebounder. With the vertical, all that as well, combined with just the fact that you get the rebound chaser because of having a 92, I'd like to think if you were just looking at a build like this, I'd be a lot less confident in it, you know? But at 6'8", your maximum offensive rebound is pretty restricted, so I had to go with the defensive rebound instead to carry on the rebound chaser end of things. But I've had this, it's been plenty good at performing, so if you want my true take on it, I think it's a lot more associated with the rebound chaser rather than the actual rating itself. But anyway, besides that, like we said, the actual thresholds we're here to list are 85, 92, and then 96. So moving on to the physicals, I want to give an example of, like, let's just talk about the build that we're on right now. You really should be focused on things to do with, like, where is your maximum strength and rebound that you would like out of the build. Like, if I was making a 6'10 right here with a maximum wingspan, let's say I wanted to have a 91 strength for the gold brick wall, and then I also wanted a 96 offensive rebound. Boom. We're trying to put the weight to whatever point we want with that. Now, what you really should do, in my opinion, is max out the speed at whatever you can afford in that regard. Same goes for the agility, in my opinion. These are important attribute ratings to have. Now, if you want to sit here and talk about you're going to be a 7'3" that's sitting in the corner on defense on rec, or you're going to plant your feet in the paint on rec as well, and you're just going to leave the pops open 24/7, more power to you, I guess, bro. But me personally, what I think you should do is fine-tune the physicals to where you can really, like, this looks like it's crafted well, you know what I mean? And you're not missing out on hardly anything at all. You're not leaving very many blank gray spots on the rating bars at all. And in this case, as you can see, we fine-tuned it to where it's like 91 strength for the gold brick wall, and you're still able to max out your speed, your agility. This is actually a really good spot to be because you can get slice takeover for having 70 agility, but that's besides the point. Anyway, I just wanted to say, for any build that's like, let's say 6'7" and up, I think you should max out your speed in most cases, whether you're a lock, a big man, anything like that. And I know I've heard some really dumb opinions, if you ask me, about people talking about the speed. They'll be like, well, if you're a point guard, speed's way more valuable to you than a big man would be. Bro, are you going to do this? You're going to make a 97 speed 6'3"? No one does that. Literally nobody, bro. That's my point. That's why I'm saying you don't max out your speed on these types of builds. Now, if you want to be decent with it, you want to be in the 86 threshold and stuff like that, that's perfectly fine. That's respectable. It kind of happens naturally, too, just off your speed with ball in most cases. As you can see, it actually ends up at 86 if you have a 91 speed with ball. And that's what a lot of people do. So just understand speed. You know, if you want to talk about badge thresholds, stuff like that here and there, feel free to. But for the most part, the only thing I ever find myself looking at as far as is like the slippery off ball for the tiering as well. You know, like boom, 85. It's like, okay, I guess. You know, you can talk about that all you want. But what's really important to talk about in the badge regards is the agility. This is actually a very important deal, and let's go ahead and make an example of this. As you can see, you're even able to afford 99.3, while your agility, if you weren't paying attention to it, could be as low as 71, maybe even lower for that matter. Like you could have, I mean, it'd be a rare case, but look at this. Because of your agility, you could have bronze shifty shooter while having all types of legend badges. So this is something important to look at, as well as the fact that you could have, like, let's say 85 per MD, but you're missing out on the agility to be able to get the on-ball menace, which you need to be 76 in that regard. So, and that also ties in with the shifty shooter. So if you want to be technical about it, it just depends the type of build you're making for me to give you a specific spot for saying the agility is good value. But I'd like to think I'm here to vouch for, let's say, around 80. You know, I've tested this, I've played on it. I think it's plenty respectable and good. Not to mention, you can see you're able to get a lot of different badges with that. If you really want the specifics of it, I guess you need 82 to be able to get Legend Shifty Shooter. And then where the 80 threshold is more important is, as you can see, you're able to get the on-ball menace if you have that Prim D at 92. Now in this case, I'm on a too small of a build where it's like tethered differently. Let's go to like a 6-7 instead, where you can see you would be able to have a build that doesn't have, you know, 80 agility while also having 92 prim. So when you have the 92 prim, you want to put that agility to 80 at the very least to be able to get that on-ball menace on goal. So I would probably say the same thing though with agility, where you want to max this out if you're on a lock build or even a big man build or power forward for that matter. I think as these types of, you know, maxing out the, let's say that 610 example we made again, you know, or like 83 strength for the silver brick wall, you want to be able to max out these types of ratings, bro. You don't want to completely do some stupid nonsense where you're on like a 610 that has some ratings like this. This is pitiful to look at, bro. If you were to max your build out with these ratings, you know, it's like make a 7-footer, make a 7-1 if you're going to have this low of agility or speed on your 610. This is where you really need to max these out to get the value out of you being this short, because that's all you're getting with this is things like per MD, speed with ball, you know, speed, agility, all that. If you're going to lower those maximums, you know, other than what it is to the max, you may as well just be 7-1 or something like that. So that's my take on that. That's why I know you guys might hear me say some what sounds dumb of talking about max these out on a big but not a guard, but that's because, again, we've already, you know, addressed this. I mean, are we really going to make a 6'2" point guard that ends up being able to get like 97 agility, and you're just going to do that for no reason, you know? I mean, this is just overkill if you ask me. So anyway, back to some actual ratings that matter. Let's talk about strength. So you can see with strength, this is going to be correlated with a lot of different badges. A lot of these require a lot of different ratings too though. So like, let's say I'm gonna just max out some of them that I know matter. So it's a very weird spot to be, right? Because like you're looking at a lot of things that are correlated with strength right here. If we take strength down, that's bad ball, bro. We're losing out on so many badges right there, you know, like so many things. And a lot of them are correlated with, let's say, post control, interior defense, prim D, rebounding, all that, screen setting. So in this case, even layups for that matter with the physical finisher. So I want to talk about the thresholds that I really would vouch for, in my opinion. So that is going to be, and I'm not going to fine tune the freaking builds all over the place and take 10 more minutes doing that. I'm going to just tell you guys what I think. So 85 strength, it would get you the gold immovable enforcer, as well as having things like post powerhouse if you wanted to go with like, let's say 86. So 85/86 for like the early end of things, right? If you want to go a little bit higher, I'd like to think going 91 is good ball for the brick wall. And then also, and I guess I do have to freaking change the build to show you guys this, but let's just go ahead and do it. If you were to make, let's say a build to play as like a lock, right? So let's say you have 95 per MD or something like that. You wanted the challenger and stuff. So if you go even higher on the strength to the 92 threshold, you're looking at legend immovable enforcer, which if you want to talk about a big reason for why 92 would be a good value on a lock rather than 91, 91 is getting you something like gold brick wall, Hall of Fame immovable, but one more rating is getting you legend immovable. Let's say you were uneducated on that and made a build with 90 strength as a lockdown, but you could have had 92. You just missed out on 2 levels of movable enforcer for not having 2 strength. So that's why I say, in my opinion, the thresholds that we're talking about for strength, 85 for that movable enforcer, and just in general, you could go 86, like I said, if you're a post scorer, but then 91/92. So those are the value points, if you ask me. If you really want to talk about the low end value points though, I guess you could argue, like, check this out. This is where like the low end is really good. So at, let's say, I don't know, let's just go ahead and showcase 67, physical finisher, 68, box out beast. 70, post move lockdown and post powerhouse. 71, box out beast on silver, a movable enforcer on bronze. You could really argue that like all the way up to 73 is super good value that you really would, it would really suck for you to miss out on that, you know? Like with all those bronze badges that are correlated with that. Reminds you that if you have a low strength, you're not getting any of these at all. Strong handle physical finisher as a guard. Immovable enforcer is even important as a guard, if you ask me, to be able to kind of put up a fight on the rebounding, or on the on-ball D, if you will. And then, again, like as a big, you need to have something like brick wall, box out beast, stuff like that. So that's an obvious thing. And then same goes for the post scores. You want to be on the lookout for that. So strength, you know, 73, good threshold to hit. If you want to go with like the low or the high end stuff as well, 85 to 91, 92, something like that. So let's talk about vertical. Obviously, this is something that's more correlated with your driving dunk packages. It's something that's just good to have at a decent level. We already talked about how 60 is correlated with that D-book package, and just in general, a lot of different dunks that are 80 dunk required. So vertical, important to know as far as your dunk packages. You want to have at least 75 if it's correlated with the 87 to be able to get the pro contacts off 1 or off 2. If you want the pro contacts off 1, it needs to be 78. And then in that same kind of family tree, if you will, you would need 74 vertical to get the high flying denier on silver. So a lot of things to do with vertical are just tied to like block, driving dunk, and like dunk packages and stuff like that. So what I really recommend though, if you ask me, 80 vertical. Like we already talked about, it's correlated with if you were to, let's say, try and go for that gold high flying denier. It's also a threshold point of if you have 89 driving dunk and then you're able to get the aerial wizard. It's just a good spot to be, if you ask me, to have 80 vert. So that's the threshold point. If you want to be a great rebounder as well, you could really argue on like, you know, these 6'11", 7-foot builds and stuff like that. Like imagine you have a footer, right? That maybe we go a little bit heavier on the weight. It's hard to explain, but for the most part, 80 vert, that's almost maximum for that matter. And again, this will make you look good in terms of if you were to try and max out a lot of like leaving that non-gray area on the build. And that really does make your build play like an athletic freak when you're maxing it out, for that matter, if you ask me. But anyway, that's besides the point. We just wanted to talk about the badges that it's correlated with for the most part. And again, that's like Hall of Fame aerial wizard, silver high flying denier, or gold high flying denier, I should say. And actually, for that matter, it's actually correlated with poster on gold as well, I believe. Yeah, gold poster, as you can see. So it's a very nice spot to be, if you ask me. I know it's just my opinion. I like 80 vert. I've played on it a lot, and I'd vouch for it, for sure. So anyway, that's all video. I hope you all enjoyed. I know this is a little bit of a winded video, if you will. Lots of yapping. But hey, that's what we're here for, you know? Just the yapper. So I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to drop a like, sub if you're new, turn on noties, all that good stuff. Like always, try this one to 2,000 likes. And if you made it to the end of the video, put value in the comment short supports me right through. Obviously, since we're now a little bit more educated on the game, I wanted to be a little bit more detailed with this one, get a little bit more descriptive of the reasons for some of these threshold points. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you appreciate the information. And obviously, you know, this is just my opinion for that matter, when you really want to talk about it at the end of the day. But I hope my opinion goes along with some of you guys. But anyway, that's all for video. I hope you all enjoyed. None of that. Take it easy, man. Peace.